Hello, this is Edgin Montiel, and this is a video for UCCS's MAE 1503 Introduction to Engineering Design, taught by Dr. Christopher Foley. This is a continuation of a series of videos. This one is going to be for the SolidWorks tutorial for the assemblies. So just like we've done before, we're going to want to go to our little help button or the help menu and find our tutorials. And in here, we're going to be working on the Getting Started tab and the Assemblies lesson here. So assemblies are ultimately SolidWorks' way of putting a bunch of parts together. We can make parts interact with each other, we can assign material properties, and we can evaluate those assemblies to see what kind of material properties they're going to have and how the different parts are going to interact with each other based on the constraints that we assign within SolidWorks on how they're going to interact with each other and their material properties. So this one's a real basic assignment. We have the front of our camera that we made in lesson 1. So if you don't have the camera front, I believe that this assignment will give it to you when we get to that step. If you're part of Dr. Foley's class, then this assignment, you can actually go to the assemblies assignment, and there is a camera that you can download. It's a green camera, and it doesn't have buttons, but that one is fine for this assignment. But the goal is ultimately you're going to want to uh, get your camera front that you made or download the one from Canvas and get it open in SolidWorks. But then we're going to start by making the back of this camera now, since we've already made the front. So I'm going to go to File and create a new part. And this new part is going to be the back that goes to it. So just like we're used to doing before, we're going to start with our extruded boss base button, click on our front plane, and then we're going to draw a rectangle starting at the origin so we can start making all these sketch relations. And using our smart dimension tool, left clicking and all along the way, we're going to dimension this to 120 millimeters by 120 millimeters. And then once we're done with that, we click check mark because we're done with our dimension tool. We're going to hit exit sketch because we're done with our sketch. And when we did everything right, it should automatically take us into our extrude boss base tool. In this, it wants us to set our depth to 90 millimeters. So this base is going to be a little bit bigger than the front of our camera. We hit check mark because we're done with extruding it. Now we're going to add some fillets to it. And we're going to do these 4 edges to match the front of our camera, just like with the same fillet radius, which if you remember when we made the front of our camera, this was a property or a value of 10. So I hit check mark, and now we just got to shell this bad boy out, and we do that with a value of 4 millimeters according to the SolidWorks instructions. So now we're well on the way of being able to have this interface with the front of our camera. So now we got to do a pretty complex series of steps, in my opinion, when it comes to SolidWorks. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this back of our camera. That's what we're working on here, is the back of the camera. And when you look at the back of our camera, there's this little rim here that's currently the top of it. So we're going to tell SolidWorks to take this rim and to make a drawing of the rim on top of the rim. Then we're going to slightly alter that drawing on top of the rim and then use that drawing to cut out a portion of the rim to have it interface and slide it into the front of the camera. So that probably sounds kind of complicated, but the instructions are just as complicated if you're trying to do it over here. But ultimately, we want to select this rim. So I'm going to use my middle mouse button to scroll in ridiculously close and click on this blue rim. So I'm going to click off of it for now. I just click in this gray area to click off of that rim. But ultimately, I do just want to scroll in very close to be able to click on this whole surface, this planar surface. It's called Boss Extrude 1 over here in the design tree, but really it's just this tiny rim. Then once I do that, I'm going to hit my Extrude Cut button. And while it's still selected blue, I want to make sure it stays selected blue. I'm going to click on Convert Entities. And once I click on Convert Entities, I get these little green pictures here everywhere. Now this is that part of the step where we just selected that rim, and we had SolidWorks draw a picture of that rim on that rim. So now I have to select the picture of that rim on the rim by selecting it again. So now you'll see that it highlights blue. And now I'm going to click Offset Entities, and I can immediately see this little yellow line populate on my screen. If for whatever reason you guys don't, there's no option to preview, so you should be able to see this little line pop up, and it's either going to be on the outside or the inside of your figure here. Mine's on the outside, so I need to click this reverse button. And then SolidWorks wants me to set the value of this to 2 millimeters. So once I hit that to 2 millimeters, my little line will end up right in the middle of my rim there. And then I hit check mark. And since I'm done sketching, I hit exit sketch. And since I started with the extrude cut, it goes right into my extrude tool. And I can see that it's cutting something, but SolidWorks wants me to set this to blind and this value to 20 millimeters. And I can see on my drawing that it's cutting the outside of my back of the camera here. And you can actually flip it to the inside. So if yours is on the inside already, you don't want it on the inside. You actually want it on the outside. So once my cut's on the outside set to 20 millimeters, I hit check mark. And now I have the back of my camera about ready to go. The last step here is it wants us to do things on the appearances. So over here on my design tree, up here where the little yellow Lego is, I can right click on that because that's my actual part. And I can go to appearances, which is right here, and click on this pretty appearance button. And once I do that, I'm able to assign a color to the back of my camera, whichever color I like, hit check mark. And now for Dr. Foley's assignments, we need to make sure to save this file twice. So I'm going to save it as a SolidWorks file. So I'm going to save as, and on my desktop, I'm going to make myself a new folder that I can save all these in. So this is the Assemblies lab. And inside that folder, I'm going to save this file as my last name, underscore camera underscore back. And I save that as the SolidWorks part, and I'm going to save it again, this time as a JPEG with the same name in the same spot. So now I can come up here to my menu system, and there's this Windows drop down. And this is where I could see everything that's open. If I don't want to look at it this way, because I can hover over each part and I can see a little picture, I could also come down to my Start taskbar down here in Windows. I don't think you can see this right now, but maybe you can see the little pictures pop up. But you can see the different little images pop up in Windows as to which windows are open for SolidWorks. So I can tell that I have both of the camera front and the camera back open in SolidWorks. So now it doesn't matter on which one, but I want to go to File and go to New again. And this time I'm going to make an assembly. I click OK. And then from Assembly, I can hit this little pin because I'm in this Begin Assembly tool here. And I'm going to click this little pin because this is going to hold this into place. And since I have this, both my front and the back of the camera open, I can see that both parts are right here in SolidWorks ready for me to put out. So when I select them, the back of my camera, I also want to make sure that I have graphics preview on, and I can see it over there to the right. But once I move my cursor into my drawing area is where it actually gives me the ability to move this part around. So I have to left click to stamp that into place somewhere. And I could put multiple ones of these, but we don't want multiple backs of the camera because we want to come over here and select the front of our camera now. And similarly, I'm going to just left click to stamp it somewhere into place on my workstation here. So now I'm done with this Begin Assembly Property Manager. So I click the check mark to make that go away. And the process that SolidWorks calls it for being able to put these pieces together is called mates. So mate little paperclip icon up here on the Assembly tab is where we're going to be working most of our time. So on the Assembly tab, I click on Mate, and it's going to bring up the Property Manager for Mate. And again, you're going to see these sketch relations that we should start getting familiar with, because it's actually making sketch relations between these two items that will hold them together, and that makes the assembly. So the first mate that it wants you to make inside of SolidWorks is going to be to connect these two little planar edges. So the way you could think about that is that in this section, this blue window is where we're going to be populating our sections. So we want to click this front little lip that we had created earlier. So I have to zoom in super close to make sure I click that whole plane of existence. Because we're going to tell SolidWorks that we want that plane of that part and the plane of that part, and it already moves them into place to where they're touching, because we want those to be coincident. So we want those to be touching. I hit check mark, and now it kind of moved my parts into place a little bit better than what they were. And now when I try to move them around, I can see they're locked in that kind of plane of direction that I can't get these to rotate anymore. So now I have to make some more mates or more relations to be able to lock these into place, because they have more degrees of freedoms that need to be restricted. So every time I create a mate, it automatically moves me on to the next one, because it's kind of implied that you're going to need more than one, since there's more than one degree of freedom. So I'm on the next one, and I'm going to click this planar surface and this planar surface, because those two should actually be touching, and I hit check mark. And then I'm going to hit this surface and this surface here and hit check mark. And with those three, that should be enough to tie these into place. So I'm going to hit check mark with nothing in here now, because that's going to finish all of my relations, all of my mates. Now here in my design tree, not only can I see my two parts and their respective design trees, but now I can start to see the mates that I'm making. And I can hover over each one of the mates, similarly to what I could do in each of the design trees, to see each of the different features that I'm creating in SolidWorks in my design tree. So as you keep going, your design tree just keeps getting longer and longer and more complicated. You know that you made the assembly correctly if you try to left click on one of the parts and hold down your left click and try to move it around. And if they don't move, that means that they're actually locked into place. So now I'm going to put this in a good view, a nice little isometric view, because I'm going to make sure I save a good image of this for my assignment with Dr. Foley. So I'm going to make sure to save this twice now. I'm going to save it where I've been saving things, not only as my assembly file, which I'm going to save as my last name underscore camera underscore ASCII. But then I'm also going to come in here and make sure that I save this as a JPEG as well. Now the last part of this assignment, we're going to go to File and New, is something that Dr. Foley had us do. It's creating a cap for this as well, but that will be in a different video where we're creating the cap for this assembly. The last thing that I want to show you in this video is going to be this last step in the instructions. So we can actually go through and make some different display views here in SolidWorks. So if I am looking at my design tree here and I notice that this little bubble here that protrudes out a little bit more than the rest of this window over here to the left of my SolidWorks window, I can grab that and pull that out further, and I can actually start to see more of these buttons without having to hit these little arrows up here. And that's important because we want to pull this out just far enough till we can get to this little black arrow that we can click on. Once I hit on this little black arrow, that's what this show display pane is talking about here in the instructions, is this little black arrow right there. And once you hit that, you can right click anywhere in the display pane to add a display state. Once you add a display state, you can call it whatever you want, and you can see I added whatever. Enter a name and press enter. Move the pointer over one of your parts in the design tree. So we're going to hover over this one. Move the pointer to display mode, which is right here. And we're going to change that to one of the different ones, like wireframe, or better yet, we're going to do hidden lines removed. And now we're able to look at our image with one of them being able to be see-through and the other part not being able to see through. And then we can hide all of this so we can show how fancy and cool we are. But then if we want to toggle between them, all we have to do is right click on it and we can go back to the other display state. So by right clicking and just going back and forth really fast between different display states that you like could be beneficial, especially as we get into more complex types of parts and assemblies that we can build. You may want to be able to quickly demonstrate being able to look inside of a part and then back to its actual full assembly of it being done. So that concludes this video, and thanks for watching.